Hello, and welcome to Steffoodle. I am, oceanically, Steph, and it's time for MerMay. Hey, I'm a little busy. I'm in the middle of an intro right now. What do you mean it's August? So I'm kind of regretting making that I'm back video and then disappearing for 4 months. This meme pretty much sums up how my brain has been working this year. And finishing this doll, which was done over a month ago, and then getting through editing feels like it's been a fight with my brain the whole way. But we're here. And I've got that pretty merman I promised you last year before I decided to be silly and make Steve. So let's get to it. My color palette is based on sunsets, so Monster High G3 Heath with his orange skin tone is a perfect base. Since his hair is just molded plastic, I decided to go back to the cup of boiled water method for the head removal. This turned out to be the easiest time I've had removing a G3 head. And the plastic hair took no time to dry off. I was really surprised. I thought I was gonna have to struggle with it. I wiped off his factory face and painted hair with acetone. Then I used some super light air dry clay to fill in his head cavity and make it look more head-shaped again. While that dries, let's work on the tail. I decided to sew most of the body of the tail with my sewing machine. Was this a good idea? I don't know, but I'm trying to get more experience using it for these projects. I want to use what I think is a reverse applique technique for the front of the tail using these 4 metallic colors. I'll start with the light pink and orange. I place the orange on top of the pink, and when I flip it over you can see the lines I've marked on the back, which is where I'm going to sew these together. Now that's done, I can trim away the orange fabric in the middle between the 2 lines of stitching to reveal the pink underneath. I then go over the edges with a zigzag stitch on my machine. After that, I trim away the excess pink fabric from the back. I draw my guidelines on the back of the orange fabric, and then repeat the same steps with the dark pink and then the purple fabric. For the fins, I'll be layering pieces of these 3 colors of chiffon. To start, I've stretched 2 layers of the orange chiffon on this embroidery frame, and traced my base tail fin shape onto it. I paint over the border of the fin with gold fabric paint on both sides, sealing them together so they won't fray when I cut them out later. I also paint on some fray check along the top edge. For the other colors, I'll be working in single layers of chiffon and making 4 individual fins. Now they're all painted, it's time to cut the fins out. I use my normal fabric scissors for the tops and outer sides of the fins, cutting in the middle of the paint lines. Then I used some scallop pinking shears to cut the inner edges of the fins. And here are all my tail fin pieces. Next, I'll take the matching purple and pink pieces from each side and whip stitch them together along the top edge with some gold embroidery thread. Once that's done, I can nestle all my tail pieces into each other and baste them together along the top edge. I also made some side fins following the same steps. I attached the side fins to the tail front before adding the 2 back panels. Next, I sew on the waistband. And now I can gather the tail and sew it onto the front section before hand sewing the back seam, followed by the bottom seam. Finally, I folded over and sewed down the top of the waistband and added a snap closure. The tail still wasn't extra enough, so I took some of this hot pink lace and painted the borders gold. This will go over the waistband. I also trimmed down a shorter piece for the bottom of the tail, just above the fin. I also decided later that the gold thread I used on my sewing machine was too different from the gold of the fabric paint, so I painted over those seams lightly to make them blend in a little bit better. And that's the tail done. Now that the clay has dried, I gave it a base layer of orange paint before spraying the head with a couple of layers of Mr. Super Clear UV Cut Matte and got onto the face set. I had a very specific vision of what I wanted his face to look like from the start. Half-closed, dreamy eyes with some really dramatic metallic-looking eye makeup and no eyebrows. It took a lot of layering with pastels, pencils, paint, and mica powders to get him there. So while I do that, let's have a chat. As I said in my last video, I've been really trying to focus on taking better care of myself. So that's part of why I've been gone for so long. I've also finally started therapy again. It's 20 sessions this time rather than the normal 6 or 10 that's usually given with the NHS. So that's good. I'm about a third of the way through, I think. And I think it's going okay. I'm also trying to get out in the community more when I'm able and when I can afford to. We've also had a few awful heat waves over here. Thankfully not nearly as severe where I'm at, but still super rough to get through. And just a reminder to folks on certain medications like SSRIs and antipsychotics, make sure to really take care of yourselves and stay hydrated. The next doll I work on will be my Halloween doll, so you likely won't see me again until October. I'm going to try editing my footage as I go this time, taking some time out every few days or at least once a week to cut down the footage I've filmed thus far, rather than saving it all for the end, because one thing this project has taught me is that doing all of the editing in one big chunk at the end is just not a good way for me to work anymore. So I hope by getting the rough cut done along the way, it'll mitigate how much of a slog it feels like, and instead I'll get to focus on the fun bits of editing at the end. I'm really happy with how his face turned out. It's just how I pictured it. Since he's gonna be shirtless, I also blushed his upper body with the same colors I used for his face. Now I can reattach his head to his body. Silly me forgot to glue the clay piece onto his head after it dried, so I'll do that now. I've put some of my Uhu glue in this precision tip bottle, and oh my god, it is a lifesaver. I got the idea from Bald Eagle Design over on Instagram after I saw him recommend these bottles for gem tack. Now I can paint his scalp purple and seal it in with some matte Mod Podge. Even though he's not wearing a shirt, I decided he needed some kind of adornment, so I painted some more of that pink lace and backed it with some of the purple chiffon. I sewed the pieces onto the chiffon and then outlined the shapes on the back of the chiffon with Fray check before cutting them out and adding a whip stitch around the edge. Then I sewed them onto his upper arms and wrists. I later added a small bit of gold painted chiffon to cover where I sewed the pieces together to make it look a little bit more clean. And now I can move on to the hair. He's going to have a long braid, which I want to be a gradient from purple to pink to orange. To achieve this with yarn wefts, which aren't very long by nature, I'll be making some long extensions using a piece of yarn as the base for each. I start at the bottom with the orange wefts, and glue the wefts around the yarn. That precision tip bottle of Uhu glue came in clutch for this. Cannot recommend them enough. I continue gluing, working through the orange wefts, then the orange-pink blend, then the pink wefts, then the pink-purple blend, and finally the purple. I made so many wefts for this. Once I'm happy with them, I glue on a few purple wefts at the nape of the doll's neck before trimming the excess length of yarn and gluing on the extensions. Once dry, I continue gluing purple wefts to the head, making sure to really press the wefts down over the yarn ends from the extensions. And here he is with all the wefts glued on. I was going to do a reveal here, but I forgot to film the second half of it. But after this, I braided his hair with the extensions and secured the end by wrapping some gold wire around it. You'll see it better in the photos at the end. I am so sorry. He seems very princely to me, so I decided to make him a crown out of the same lace that I've been using throughout this project, and some decorative fins on the sides, made in the same way that I have made all the others, though all of them are just a single layer of chiffon this time. Once it's all glued together and dry, I use a few pins to secure it to the head. And I painted the heads of the pins in the same gold as the crown so they blend in. And that's it! He's all done! The only other thing I did was add a little bit of stuffing to the bottom of his tail so it would hold its shape better. Now, let's get to the photos. I landed on the name Vesper, as that's Latin for evening or evening star. I thought that suited him nicely. This doll was a journey. While I did have a pretty clear vision from the start, life stuff and my brain kept getting in the way. But we got there in the end, and honestly, I am over the moon with how he turned out. But what do you think of Vesper? Was he worth the wait? And how's your summer going amidst everything that's going on? Or winter, if you're in the southern hemisphere. I hope you're okay as you can be and that you're keeping hydrated. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more from me, and click the bell icon and turn on all notifications so you'll know whenever I post a new video. All my socials will be linked down below. I'm most active on Instagram. And if you really like what I do and you want to buy me a coffee or help me afford supplies, you can find a link to my Ko-fi tip jar in the description down below, or you can click the super thanks button right below this video. And until next time, bye!